The second younger brother ran away, leaving only his beautiful wife and his foolish elder brother. Keywords of the novel. Biao Ge's Demon Life with no pop-ups. Download the complete TXT collection of Biao Ge's Demon Life, and read the latest chapters of Biao Ge's Demon Life. Chapter 1. Water Flowers in the Reed Swamp. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Water Flowers in the Reed Swamp. In the scorching dog days, the whole world seems like a big steamer. On such a hot day, in a small farmyard in Jinmen village, Jinshan town, Zhang Dabiao, who was tall and had a dark face, sat under his jujube tree. His agile hands kept flipping and quickly woven a fish basket. "Big brother, it's such a hot day, can you take a break?" Just then, the curtain hanging at the door was lifted. What came out was a woman in her early 20s with a slightly immature face. Her name is Han Meili, her figure is graceful, and her skin is smooth like tofu, especially those big eyes of Buling Buling, which make people want to hold her in their arms and cherish her for a while. Zhang Dabiao looked up, blushing as he glanced at the other person, as if feeling guilty, and quickly lowered his head. Seeing him not speaking and continuing to work with his head down, Han Meili had no choice but to persuade this foolish and inflexible old man to take a break from the heat. At this moment, the little ancestor in the room began to cry again, and she could only hastily lift the curtain and go back. Zhang Dabiao continued to work and quickly made a fish basket. At this moment, his face was full of excitement, because with this fish basket, he could go catch fish, and the little doll would no longer cry from hunger. It's strange to say that my sister.in.law Han Meili is very valuable, but she can't feed her child enough. She's really blind. Of course, Zhang Dabiao was just thinking in his heart, but he dared not say this to others. Holding the prepared fish basket, Zhang Dabiao walked to the window and gently tapped on it, looking in the direction of the entrance. "Sister-in-law, catch the fish, go." After speaking, Zhang Dabiao ran out of the door without waiting for any reaction inside. Han Meili wanted to stop him, but unfortunately he had already run away without a trace. Green mountains and clear waters, but there are no cows or sheep, only endless mountains. Jinshan town, Jinmen village, there's really nothing to say, it's just a small dilapidated village deep in the mountains. Those who are capable, passionate and capable have left long ago. Most of the people who stay in the village now are elderly, weak, women, and children. They may want to leave, but unfortunately, they cannot leave. Fortunately, the resources on the mountain are relatively abundant, and even with a little effort, one cannot starve, but they cannot make a fortune. The river that Zhang Dabiao came to today is called Jinhe. It is said that many people searched for gold here earlier, hence its name. Zhang Dabiao is very familiar with this mother river, but he is not here to seek gold, but to catch fish. Quickly, he arranged all 10 fish baskets, and then waited for time to collect them. Whether or not he could catch the fish depended on the favor of heaven. In the scorching summer, waiting is the most annoying thing, but Zhang Dabiao is very patient. He quietly counted the cries of magpies, and after 100 calls, he plunged into the water. Why it's 100 times, Zhang Dabiao is not sure, because his sister.in.law always says that counting 100 times can make him eat. Later, when he was idle and bored, he often counted. After his disdainful efforts, now he can count up to 10,000, not to mention 100. Moreover, fools have another skill, which is to never forget what they see. No matter what, as long as they see it twice, they will definitely remember it. Soon, Zhang Dabiao's head popped out of the water and he glanced at the lively fish in the basket, his face filled with joy. However, at this moment, he suddenly noticed a large wave surging from the nearby reeds. Thinking of this, Zhang Dabiao's dull eyes lit up unexpectedly. "There's a big deal." Zhang Dabiao was overjoyed. Such a big wave, it's either a big fish or a wild duck. Anyway, no matter what it is, if you catch it, you'll have meat to eat. So he carefully swam over and gently scraped open the reed bushes. But the scene before him left him stunned. The originally dense reeds should have been treated by someone, but inside there is an open area of about 10 meters, half of which is water and half of which is beach. I saw a woman with blonde hair bathing in the water, half of her body in the water and half exposed to the outside. Zhang Dabiao immediately had the impulse to turn around and run, because this woman was none other than Xia Erni, the wife of their village chief Wang Changgui. Xia Erni is over 40 years old and her skin is well maintained. Moreover, the village chief Wang Changgui is wealthy and willing to spend money on Xia Erni. She wears new clothes one after another, just like a big star, so every time she goes on the street, it can cause a sensation. To be honest, Zhang Dabiao had dreamed of climbing onto someone else's Kong, but the village chief was a ruthless person. Anyone in the village who knew something knew that Xia Erni couldn't provoke him. Zhang Dabiao wanted to run in his heart, but his body was very solid and had no place to move. Xia Erni didn't notice anyone spying in the dark. After washing it clean, she went ashore. Zhang Dabiao then realized that there was still a blanket lying on the shore. And at this moment, another person sneaked out of the reed bushes. Seeing the newcomer, Zhang Dabiao became even dumbfounded. Isn't this the village chief's sworn brother Zhou Dana? When did Xia Erni hook up with Zhou Dana? How did you come, you dead ghost? Xia Erni pouted impatiently, just scratching her head. Not to mention Zhang Dabiao, Zhou Dana couldn't bear it anymore and threw her on the blanket as soon as she went up. I have to get that old guy Changgui drunk, otherwise how would we have the chance to have a rendezvous here? Oh, please be gentle. Less than 2 minutes had passed, and Xia Erni pushed Zhou Dana away with a disgusted expression on her face. Is that all? You useless thing, it's getting more and more useless. It's not as good as Wang Changgui. Zhou Dana smiled obsequiously and said, I haven't seen you for quite some time. I miss you so much, haven't I? Roll on, this is what you keep saying. How long have you been holding on? What's the point of me asking you? Xia Erni said as she put on her clothes. Zhou Dana seemed to be trying to revive his strength, so the two of them started to argue. Unfortunately, Xia Erni had lost interest at the moment. Zhang Dabiao was also watching with great enthusiasm, but unfortunately it ended too quickly. Just as he was about to leave, suddenly a wild duck splashed a few times in the nearby reeds. Who? Upon hearing this, Zhang Dabiao thought he had been discovered and turned around in fear, heading upstream towards the opposite shore. However, his movements caught the attention of Zhou Dana and Xia Erni. Seeing that it was the foolish Zhang Dabiao from the village who had escaped, Xia Erni couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was him. If it were someone else, it would be troublesome. Who can guarantee that fool won't say anything? Zhou Dana's face turned cold. You quickly pack your things and go back, don't let Wang Changgui find out. What do you want to do? Don't act recklessly. Zhang Dabiao became a fool when he returned 5 years ago. Don't take him seriously. Hee, don't worry. The two broke up on the shore, with Xia Erni leaving first, while Zhou Dana sneered inwardly in the direction Zhang Dabiao was running away. Dead people are the most reassuring. Zhang Dabiao was really scared and didn't care about collecting other fish baskets. He hurriedly ran home with a few small fish in the basket. Village chief, don't worry, when Hanlin comes back, he will definitely repay the money he owes you. At home, Han Meili looked at Wang Changgui with a red face and thick neck on her guard. He obviously drank a lot of alcohol, his red eyes greedily scrutinizing Han Meili without any hesitation, and his smile became even more excited. I don't know if I felt the tension in the atmosphere, but the little doll burst into tears. Han Meili quickly hugged her son in her arms, while Wang Changgui smiled and said, Beautiful, the child must be hungry when she cries. Hurry up and give the child food. Han Meili blushed so much that she could even bleed, and her big eyes were filled with anger. Eating. How can I feed my child with you, an old thing? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Angry Fool Online. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Angry Fool Online. Han Meili gritted her teeth and was about to speak and drive him away. At this moment, Wang Changui said again, Hanlin said he was going out to start a business. Before leaving, he took 5,000 yuan from me and said he could repay it in 2 months, but now it has been 3 months. I'm not saying it, that kid from Hanlin has been useless since he was young. He not only borrowed my money, but also asked me to guarantee and help him borrow a high-interest loan of 50,000 yuan. I have been helping to suppress the high-interest loan, but I can't hold it down for too long. Speaking of this, Wang Changui surprisingly showed a caring expression. Beautiful, I really care about you and your child. You said this high-interest loan really wants to come knocking on your door to collect debts, so can there still be good fruit for you too? Village chief, is what you said true? Han Meili couldn't believe her own ears upon hearing it. Can I still deceive you? Wang Changui smiled and then took out a promissory note. Look at it yourself, it's in black and white. It says on it that if you don't pay the money when it's due, you can use your wife and children to offset the debt. Seeing this, Han Meili felt like she was about to collapse. She quickly took out her phone and called outside, Hanlin, what's wrong with you owing high-interest loans? What's wrong with using me and my child to offset the debt? She thought the other side would slowly explain to her, but unexpectedly hung up the phone, and when she called again, it prompted to shut down. For a moment, Han Meili was on the verge of collapse. The man she trusts the most actually sold her. Speaking of which, it seems like the heavens have no eyes. Although they gave her a beautiful appearance, they did not allow her to have a perfect life. To put it simply, it's still because of being young and inexperienced. At first, she was deceived by Wang Hanlin into coming to Jinmen village, claiming that she could live a good life, and then came foolishly. But who would have thought that after Kinmen village, any nonsense about the richest person in the village or any nonsense about the magnificent single-door villa would be fake. The richest person is the richest person, and the villa is indeed unique, but it only has 3 dilapidated tiled houses, and there is also a leaky room where her foolish uncle Zhang Dabiao lives. That's it, I still deceived Zhang Dabiao, otherwise they wouldn't even have a place to live. Unfortunately, it was too late to regret it at this time, because Wang Hanlin was so ugly that she was taken care of in the city, and when she wanted to leave again, she was found to be pregnant. Wang Hanlin relied entirely on his mouth, coaxing Han Meili to continue living with him. However, as the child was born, this kind of coaxing gradually evolved into impatience. The couple quarrels every day over firewood, rice, oil, and salt, and has no choice. When they were young, they could still live a tight life, but with children, these tight days were simply impossible to live. Do children need to drink milk powder? Do we need to buy small clothes to wear? It is even more common to get sick and cause disasters. No matter how unbreakable love is, it cannot withstand the test of daily necessities, so it won't take long for this day to pass. Many times Han Meili wanted to abandon these 2 masters, but after all, the doll was the flesh that fell from her body. Fortunately, Wang Hanlin seemed to have also enlightened and resolutely chose to go out and start a business. Han Meili also wished he could go out and make money quickly, but she never expected that Wang Hanlin would actually sell her and her mother. At this moment, Han Meili is completely in a state of collapse, not knowing whether to cry or laugh. Beautiful, I still have some money in my old Wang's hand. I can help you pay it back, but... Wang Changui squinted his eyes and raised his hand to touch Han Meili's pretty face. At this moment, Han Meili had a heart that was about to die. She couldn't be afraid of anyone. She immediately opened Wang Changui's hand and angrily said, "Get out. You get out of here." Wang Changui's face changed and he covered his hand that had just been hurt. He stood up in a fit of anger. Han Meili, don't be ignorant. Without me, I'll see where you can get that 50,000 yuan. You wait, tomorrow the high-interest loan will come to your door. I won't care if you ask me. After speaking, he turned his head and left. With such pressure, he didn't believe that Han Meili, a helpless foreign woman, would not yield. But as soon as the curtain was lifted, it happened to collide with Zhang Dabiao, who was panicking and desperate. Although Zhang Dabiao is a bit foolish, he is tall and imposing. As the old saying goes, a fool has foolishness and can easily knock Wang Changgui to the ground. Biao Zi, don't you have long eyes when you walk? Wang Changgui stood up and patted his buttocks, about to kick Zhang Dabiao. This kid has never been tough in front of him, the village chief, who caught the group. I just didn't expect that Zhang Dabiao caught Wang Changgui's leg today, and a fierce light appeared in his dull eyes. You bullied your sister. Law. Woo-woo. Seeing Zhang Dabiao showing such concern for herself, while that heartless person sold her, Han Meili cried even more sadly. Although Zhang Dabiao's mind slowed down a bit, he still understood what had happened. At this moment, all he had in his mind was one thought. Sister. Law, no one should bully him. Although many of his memories were blurry, when he moved his hand, it was clear that he grabbed Wang Changgui's collar and punched him in the face. Wang Changgui moaned twice and ran outside, even kneeling and crawling. The fool hit someone. There is no way to reason with a fool. Wang Changgui ran out of Zhang Dabiao's house, quenched his saliva fiercely, and shouted loudly, Han Meili, prepare 50,000 yuan tomorrow, otherwise you won't be able to afford it. Sister-in-law, you're okay, aren't you? Zhang Dabiao said word by word. Han Meili felt even more uncomfortable when she saw Zhang Dabiao caring for her, and her crying became louder and louder, driving her child to keep crying. Zhang Dabiao didn't know what to do, so he could only pick up the fish that fell on the ground and say, You, take it slow, cry, I'll go, stew the fish, and milk it. After speaking, Zhang Dabiao left because he had just glanced roughly at Han Meili and found that the clothes were still intact, so it should not have been succeeded by Wang Changgui. What happened to the 50,000 yuan that Wang Changgui just said? Zhang Dabiao was very puzzled, but he also didn't want to think too much, because thinking too much would make his head buzz and hurt. He carefully counted out exactly 9 fish, then washed them thoroughly and poured them into the pot, adding water and burning firewood. A strong fish aroma gradually permeated the yard, and when the lid was lifted, the soup in the pot was all white. Zhang Dabiao happily filled a bowl and brought it into the room. At this time, Han Meili was already tired of crying. Han Meili was originally in a bad mood and wanted to scold a fool, but it was evident that Zhang Dabiao brought in some fish soup, which was somewhat moved. She was even thinking that even living with a fool would be better than following that bastard Wang Hanlin. At least the fool would still cook fish soup for her. What about Wang Hanlin? Besides lying, it's still lying. Zhang Dabiao handed the bowl forward as if offering a treasure, no salt added, milk added, it works. Han Meili smiled at him, knowing that a fool's kindness could not bear to refuse, and that the child also needed to supplement nutrition on their own, so she reached out her hand. However, the fish soup was just cooked and put into a bowl. Zhang Dabiao's hands were rough and thick, but Han Meili's tender hands couldn't bear this. Oh! She instinctively screamed and pulled her hand back. Zhang Dabiao was startled and quickly straightened the bowl, without dragging any mud or water. He grabbed her hot red finger and put it directly into his mouth. Big brother, what are you doing? Han Meili quickly pulled her finger back, her face turning red and hot at this moment. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Longwangjing Village Guardians. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Longwangjing Village Guardians. She didn't expect the fool to dare to take advantage of her, but when she looked up, she saw a nervous expression on the fool's silly face. Sister-in-law, Soa doesn't hurt anymore. After speaking, the fool put his finger into his mouth and sucked back and forth a few times. Han Meili suddenly felt a strange feeling in her heart, as if she had always been with Wang Hanlin. Oh! What do I think that bastard is doing? Han Meili touched her hot cheeks and smiled at the fool. Big brother, don't do it anymore. I know it won't hurt, but you can do the same. After speaking, she pinched her hand onto the crystal-clear earlobe, which was as clear as sheep fat and white jade. That cute little figure makes a fool feel warm in their heart, and they also learn from each other. Han Meili teased the fool for a while, and then the child woke up. But it's still the same as before. Chewing dry makes people feel anxious, but they just don't see the baby eating. The fool stood still under the ceiling fan, holding the fish soup, waiting for the wind from the fan to cool it down. Han Meili, who was originally restless and irritable, turned around and saw her silly uncle standing there motionless, which made her feel even more uncomfortable. When did Wang Hanlin treat her like this? Apart from being able to coax with sweet words, there is nothing practical about it. Looking at the fool Zhang Dabiao again, besides his dull mind and inability to speak in a coherent manner, he really can't find any other shortcomings. Of course, being foolish is enough to kill him, especially in this remote mountain village where his family has no money, so Zhang Dabiao's life has already been frozen. At least for now, unless someone outside says they want him to go back and inherit the family property, but this kind of thing only happens in novels. Zhang Dabiao kept an eye on the temperature on the bowl, and when it cooled down, he handed it to Han Meili again. After finishing her fish soup, Han Meili smiled and said thank you, while the fool just scratched her head and asked, that, 50,000 yuan, what's going on? Upon hearing this, Han Meili's eyes turned red again. She choked up twice, perhaps because she felt uncomfortable not wanting to speak out. So she told Zhang Dabiao exactly what happened today. Although Zhang Dabiao was wooden, he had a clear idea in his heart. He nodded and then walked out. Han Meili still had to watch the child, so she decided not to bother him. After coming out of home, Zhang Dabiao was also in a daze. 50,000 yuan, where should he go to get it? At this moment, he happened to see Zhou Dana riding on a big Harley from a distance. Seeing the person coming, Zhang Dabiao suddenly had an idea in his mind and immediately had an idea. Biaozi, get in the car, I have something to tell you. The car stopped in front of Zhang Dabiao, and Zhou De saw no one around, so he shook his head at him. Zhang Dabiao happened to have something to ask him for, so he nodded and got into the car. He just didn't realize that Zhou Dana's eyes had already burst with murderous intent. At noon, the sun was also full, so no one was seen along the way. The two of them arrived at the Longwangjing well in the mountain valley outside the village. This Dragon King well has been around for some time. It is said that this well leads directly to the sea, but of course, no one is sure if it is true. Now that the village has access to tap water, this well is gradually being forgotten. Come on, smoke. Zhou Dana chuckled and took out a cigarette from his arms, handing it to Zhang Dabiao. He hugged his shoulder and the two of them came to the well. Do you know why I'm looking for you? Although there was a smile on his face, Zhou Dana's disdain in his eyes was not concealed. I know. Zhang Dabiao nodded as he happened to be looking for Zhou Dana, because the 50,000 yuan owed to the village chief had to be taken out of him. Oh, what are you looking for me for? Zhou Dana suddenly became interested after hearing this. After all, he didn't believe that Zhang Dabiao could still run away. After speaking, he took out a lighter and lit a cigarette for Zhang Dabiao. Zhang Dabiao smiled foolishly and said, 50,000, otherwise, I'll tell the village chief. As soon as these words were spoken, Zhou Dana's face suddenly changed, and the murderous aura between his eyebrows also appeared. However, he quickly concealed it and patted Zhang Dabiao's shoulder with a smile. Dabiao, don't say 50,000, I'll give you 500 million, haha. Damn it, how dare this fool blackmail me for 50,000. Fortunately, I didn't listen to Renyi. Otherwise, that's enough. 50,000 is enough, Zhang Dabiao didn't know why, so he quickly shook his head. Yes, Yes, I'll give you 10 billion later, and then I'll send you a bank. Before Zhang Dabiao could even regain his composure, he felt a buzzing sensation in his mind. The person in front of him changed from one person to another, from 2 sides to 3 sides. As his chest froze, his body suddenly lost weight, and his eyes darkened and he completely lost consciousness. Putting the person into the well, Zhou Dana carefully looked around and was sure that no one had completely breathed a sigh of relief. He picked up the cigarette butts on the ground and threw them into the well, then hurriedly removed some weeds and threw them back in. After finishing all of this, he hurriedly rode his motorcycle and left. As the saying goes, fools are blessed with foolishness. Zhang Dabiao fell head down into the well and happened to hit the stone dragon king at the bottom of the well. His head hurt and he suddenly woke up. But when he opened his eyes, he was horrified to find that the eyes of the stone dragon king had lit up, with 4 eyes facing each other. A bright light shot into Zhang Dabiao's eyes, and his mind buzzed again, losing consciousness. I don't know how long it has been, but the dim moonlight shines on the mountain valley, and everything around looks eerie and terrifying. A pair of pale hands slowly stretch out from the well. If someone sees it, they must be scared to death. Zhang Dabiao crawled out of the well, looked up at the sky, and his eyes gradually regained clarity. He rubbed his head hard. It was only then that he remembered what had happened before. It seemed like he was about to threaten Zhou Dana to demand 50,000 yuan from him. Unexpectedly, he was kicked into the well by Zhou Dana Quang and almost drowned. "You're such a big shot, Zhou, you're actually going to kill me." Zhang Dabiao punched hard and stopped stuttering. Where is there any silly energy all over his body? He was not in a hurry to seek revenge against Zhou Dana, but instead sat cross-legged next to the Dragon King well, closing his eyes and pondering something. After a long time, he gave a bitter smile and said, "I never expected that Zhang Dabiao would be foolish for 5 years because of a woman." At this time, not only did he recover his memory through good fortune and misfortune, but he also miraculously obtained the inheritance of the Dragon Prince's immortal magic. Zhang Dabiao regained his senses and quickly picked up a dry grass from the ground and placed it in his palm. His eyes remained fixed on the dry grass, but he silently recited a spell in his heart. Following this shocking scene, Zhang Dabiao felt that he would never forget it in his lifetime. He saw that the grass, which had already dried up, gradually came to life and revealed new branches and sprouts. Zhang Dabiao's body was full of excitement, ecstatic to the point of incoherence. "Really, all of this is true. I didn't dream, ha ha ha." He turned around and kowtowed 3 times towards the Dragon King well, saying, "Grandpa Dragon King, I, Zhang Dabiao, will change my ways from now on. I will definitely benefit the village and be a good guardian of the village." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Feeling Family Affection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Feeling Family Affection. Zhang Dabiao happily returned to the village, but the quietness in the village made him very unhappy. Can it be that after losing it for so long, no one is worried? However, on second thought, he was mentally injured and turned into a fool by someone's assassination attempt 5 years ago, and the memories of these 5 years are vivid in his mind. Yeah, who would be interested in a fool? Just a few steps away, Zhang Dabiao was stunned because he saw a delicate figure in front of him, carrying a basket on his back, and knocking on the door of a household with a flashlight. "Uncle Sean, have you seen my uncle today?" "I didn't see it. Where did he go like a fool this big night? Maybe he found a place to sleep long ago." "Alright, you should go back to sleep now, don't worry about him." After saying that, the door closed directly. Faced with the indifference of the villagers, Han Meili remained indifferent and continued to walk to the next house, knocking on the door. "Uncle Li, have you seen my uncle?" "Oh my, it's beautiful. Coming out with the child so late to find it, that fool is really not a worry. How about this? You come home first, I'll go out and help you find it." "Well, I can't find him. He's in a hurry. You said it's so late and I don't know where he went. You should rest early too. I'll go somewhere else to ask. You child, why are you being polite to Uncle Li? Old lady, Beauty is here. Hurry up and watch the child. I'll go find the Biao. After speaking, Uncle Li inexplicably took Han Meili's flashlight and hurriedly walked towards Zhang Dabiao. Zhang Dabiao was hiding in the dark just now, and he could see Han Meili's actions clearly. On the way back, he was still pondering how to treat Han Meili. After all, he was the wife tricked by Wang Hanlin outside, and Zhang Dabiao had no blood relationship with Wang Hanlin, so he had no obligation to take care of this orphan and widowed mother. On the contrary, this orphan and widowed mother even occupied their own house. He hurt his brain before, so foolishly Wang Hanlin used a bottle of 13 yuan baijiu and 7 yuan peanuts to cheat him into paying homage. But now his mind is clearer than ever, so naturally he cannot be the scapegoat. Oh my, you silly thing, why are you hiding here without making a sound? Let someone beautiful search the streets with their children at night. I. Uncle Li walked over with a flashlight and happened to hit Zhang Dabiao's face. He was also startled and raised his hand to hit, but in the end, he couldn't bear to let it go. Upon hearing Uncle Li shout over there, Han Meili ignored Aunt Li and hurriedly ran over. As soon as she saw Zhang Dabiao, she forcefully patted her chest, as if a big stone had fallen from her heart. But immediately Han Meili stiffened her face and cursed, "Do you know that if you don't go home at night, your family will worry about you?" Zhang Dabiao was completely stunned. Is there anyone in his family? Does he have any family members? This sentence suddenly evoked countless memories. His parents Zhang Dabiao left early, where is there still a home? If he had a family, he wouldn't have gone out to study and socialize. Alright, beautiful. You also calm down. Since everyone has been found, don't scold him. At this moment, Aunt Li also ran over from the door and took Han Meili's arm to persuade her. After finishing speaking, he grabbed Zhang Dabiao's arm and gently advised, "Dabiao, listen to your aunt, don't run around in the future." Zhang Dabiao couldn't help but laugh and cry in his heart. He really wanted to tell them that uncle and aunt, I'm all fine now, but if these words were spoken in the middle of the night, wouldn't they scare them? Moreover, Zhang Dabiao cannot let them know that he is all well now. If what Wang Changue said is true, tomorrow the high-interest loan will definitely come to collect money, and Han Meili naturally won't be able to raise 50,000 yuan. At this time, Zhang Dabiao's foolish identity will be useful. Why? It's not illegal for fools to hit people. Since we are determined to help her, let's just help her to the end. Han Meili should be grateful, and it was precisely because she brought her child out to search that she completely moved Zhang Dabiao. Uncle Li, Aunt Li, I'm causing trouble for you. I'll take Uncle Brother home now, and you two should go back and rest as soon as possible. Han Meili said gratefully. Aunt Li nodded and said, okay, go back early. It's not too early either. Uncle Li grabbed Zhang Dabiao's arm and shouted loudly, "Kid, if you dare to run around again, you'll smash your butt next time." Zhang Dabiao couldn't help but smile and cry, but he could only pretend to be timid and nod, because Uncle Li used to always spank him. He also understood that Uncle Li cared for him, knew he was lonely and helpless, and was afraid that his saplings would grow crooked. Unfortunately, it was ultimately crooked. However, the Dragon Prince asked him to live again. This time, Zhang Dabiao must live his own life and repay Uncle and Aunt Li for their care over the years. You dead old man, look, you scared the child to tears. Biao Zi, your uncle scared you. If he dares to spank you, I dare to peel his skin. Aunt Li quickly walked over and touched Zhang Dabiao's head, as if coaxing a child. Zhang Dabiao was not scared, but moved and shed tears. At this moment, I happened to borrow a donkey to go downhill and nodded repeatedly. Upon returning home, Han Meili placed the basket on the Kong and carefully picked up the sleeping little doll. After taking care of the doll, he looked at Zhang Dabiao helplessly and saw his disheveled face. He said, all right, uncle, be good. Don't run around again in the future, don't worry about me, okay? Zhang Dabiao nodded, but in his heart he was cursing Wang Hanlin. Such a good wife doesn't even know how to cherish it, that bastard is just a beast. Now his mind is working well, thinking about spending more than a year together day and night, he feels unworthy for Han Meili. Of course, poor people must have something to hate, to put it nicely, it's called simplicity. To put it harshly, it's foolishness. If it weren't foolishness, it wouldn't have been sold and people would have paid for it. Let that Wang Hanlin play around. Watching Mu Na's silly uncle remain silent, and seeing him with a disheveled face, Han Meili couldn't help but sigh. I'll find you some clothes to change, it's almost making you dirty, Han Meili said in a sullen tone, and then stood up to help the fool pick up the clothes from the cabinet. Over the past year, Zhang Dabiao has been wearing clothes that Wang Hanlin doesn't want, and now this one has been worn for almost a summer. Perhaps upon seeing Wang Hanlin's clothes, she remembered the heartless one again. Han Meili's heart was once again sore and uncomfortable, tears streaming down her face. Zhang Dabiao's heart was particularly warm, as he turned to look at the sleeping doll with a silly smile on his face. Then he turned his head and saw his sister Law pouting with a round curve, looking for clothes for him. For a moment, he remembered a scene he had seen during the day in the reed marshes. This one, he didn't wear it either. As she spoke, Han Meili quickly wiped away her tears and turned around. She already had a black T-shirt and a large gray underpants in her hand. Just before she finished speaking, she paused because just now she clearly felt a greed in the fool's eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Village Chief Renyi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Village Chief Renyi Illusion, it must be an illusion. Han Meili tried her best to comfort herself, but at this moment, Zhang Dabiao's expression was exactly what a fool should have. She picked up her old clothes foolishly, as if she had taken advantage of them. Sister Law, thank you. For your clothes. Zhang Dabiao smiled foolishly. All right, hurry outside and go back to the house to sleep. Han Meili waved her hand and dismissed Zhang Dabiao. Zhang Dabiao finished taking a shower in the yard and glanced through the window. In the dark room, there was a faint glimmer of light, indicating that Han Meili was on the phone. What a silly woman. They've sold you, so it's strange to be able to answer your phone. Zhang Dabiao shook his head and returned to the house he currently lives in. Although it was a place where fools lived, it was exceptionally clean, indicating that Han Meili had really taken care of him and treated his cheap and foolish uncle as a relative. Early in the morning, Zhang Dabiao heard a chirping outside. He quickly put on the clean clothes that Han Meili had found for him yesterday and walked out of the house, just in time to meet Han Meili, who was also about to leave. She has very red eyes and heavy eye bags, obviously because she didn't rest well last night. Zhang Dabiao surprisingly felt a sense of heartache. Big brother, hurry back inside and don't come out no matter what happens outside, do you know? Han Meili warned seriously. This made Zhang Dabiao's heart even more moved. He was afraid of getting beaten when he went out, right? Thinking of this, Zhang Dabiao took a step forward. Before Han Meili could react, he directly pushed Han Meili's shoulder and pushed her into the western room. I'll go, you take care of the child. Ah! Han Meili couldn't let him go alone. She quickly chased outside, but at that moment Zhang Dabiao used a bolt to insert the door from outside. Big brother, come back quickly, come back quickly. Han Meili slammed on the door urgently, but by then Zhang Dabiao had already left the door. At this moment, the outside was surrounded by villagers, and there were 7 or 8 burly men standing at the door like pillars. Han Meili, why don't you hide inside and let a fool come out? Village Chief Wang Changgui shouted loudly as he saw Zhang Dabiao come out. I heard that Wang Hanlin sold his wife and children for 50,000 yuan and ran away with the money. They are now coming to collect debts. I think these two women are really unlucky. Who said it's not true? Wang Hanlin has been deceiving and kidnapping since he was young. It's really impossible for a dog to change its behavior and eat shit. De Biao, hurry back, it's none of your business. At this moment, Aunt Li squeezed out of the crowd and was about to pull Zhang de Biao away. Although she also sympathized with Han Meili's plight, Zhang de Biao was the one she watched grow up with. Besides, people are all foolish, blocking the door and only getting beaten for free can't handle anything. Surprisingly, Zhang de Biao shook his head, and Aunt Li didn't budge just now. I said it's from the Li family, so don't join in the fun. Yeah, from the old Li family. Everyone knows that de Biao is what you look like. Now he has become a fool and even had someone rob the property. It's so pitiful. Now someone is coming to collect the debt and taking those women away. Isn't the house back? The sharp and sarcastic old ladies in the village began to pretend to be kind and persuade. In fact, their intention was also to mock Aunt Li for meddling in her affairs. If someone with a darker mentality, they would think that Aunt Li was trying to seize the opportunity to snatch a house from Han Meili. Zhang de Biao is a fool. What is the difference between a fool's things and those without an owner? Actually, not only Wang Hanlin, but also many people in the village are thinking about Zhang de Biao's 3 large tiled houses. As the saying goes, Pifu is innocent and blames others. Who made him earn money before and built the first large tiled house in the village? Previously, he had a dog-like appearance, and when people saw him, they naturally didn't hesitate to praise him, but now he has become a fool, and there are naturally many who fall into trouble. Unfortunately, no one has ever haunted Wang Hanlin. He spent 20 yuan to take down Zhang de Biao's house. Later on, because of this matter, the villagers scolded their mothers a lot. They said they never thought of this for no reason. If they had known this, not to mention being a master, they could have done anything. Fool, hurry up and get out of the way. They came to ask Han Meili for debt with high-interest loans, and it doesn't matter to you. Wang Changgui glanced at Aunt Li and then advised her kindly. Zhang de Biao chuckled inwardly. This dignified old dog seemed to have hit Wang Changgui instead of him yesterday. Uncle Changgui, yesterday in the reed marshes, I saw my aunt fighting with Zhou Dana. Zhang de Biao bared his teeth and showed a silly smile, still stuttering as he spoke. Wang Changgui doesn't understand what Zhang de Biao's words mean. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with someone coming to collect debts, does it? This way. Zhang de Biao said, hugging him from the distance, and then his buttocks began to wriggle back and forth. Seeing this scene, the old ladies who had seen the world blushed one after another, and the men burst into laughter. Even the few people who came to collect debts couldn't resist. At this moment, Zhou Dana rushed out of the crowd in a fit of anger and saw Zhang de Biao at a glance, then let out a scream as if he had seen a ghost. It was precisely because of his voice that everyone's gaze fell on him. Wang Changgui's face turned pale, and he couldn't believe the words of a fool, but he couldn't refuse to believe them. Brother Changgui, this fool is lying. We were drinking together yesterday, and I got drunk. You don't know. Although it's unclear how Zhang de Biao climbed up from the well, Zhou Dana understood at this moment. If we don't explain this, we won't be able to hang out with Changgui again in the future. He just wandered around without Wang Changgui's support, that's bullshit. Upon hearing this, Wang Changgui's tone in his heart also subsided a bit. Upon careful consideration, it seemed that there was really no such possibility. Yesterday, he did indeed overestimate Zhou De. Thinking of this, he angrily turned to Zhang de Biao, who had caused him to make a fool of himself. Zhang de Biao, what are you talking nonsense about? And you, what's so funny about one or two of you? You can believe what a fool says. Upon hearing this, the scene immediately quieted down. There's no way, Wang Changgui has been the village chief for decades, and no one in the village dares to touch his tiger hair. Don't be angry, village chief. De Biao has hurt his brain. He doesn't speak thoughtfully, and what's more serious about comparing himself to a child. Aunt Li quickly persuaded upon seeing this. Wang Changui snorted and then said, "Hurry up and let that fool go. We haven't had this kind of thing in our Jinmen village for 200 years. Today, they all came to us with high-interest loans. I don't think anyone should care about this matter. Wang Hanlin is a shame to our Jinmen village, and since that woman is from outside, we cannot tarnish the reputation of our Jinmen village just because of these two people." Right, we can't damage the reputation of our Jinmen village. Zhou Dana, a staunch fan, immediately responded. When villagers heard the words, they also whispered one after another. They felt that the village head was right. Wang Hanlin could not spoil the whole pot of porridge because of a mouse's dung. Moreover, the boys in Jinmen village could not find a wife. If this matter is publicized, who would be willing to marry in Jinmen village in the future? Wang Changgui was also very satisfied with his reputation, and then said to the bald leader, "So what? You can do whatever you want, but one thing is, don't smash things for them." Well, as soon as these words were spoken, those who didn't quite agree also responded. Village Chief Renyi. In fact, they didn't know that Wang Changgui had long been thinking about the 3 large tiled houses of Zhang Dabiao's family. They thought they could get both good and bad, but unfortunately, Han Meili, the young lady, was not very old and had a stubborn temper. But now it's useless to say anything. It's okay if someone doesn't get it, but this property belongs to his Jinmen village. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Fools don't break the law by hitting people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Fools don't break the law by hitting people. Did you hear what village chief who said? You guys go up to me, be careful not to break someone else's things. Big Bald waved his hand, and 2 of his subordinates immediately went up. But as soon as I arrived at the door, I was knocked down the steps by Zhang Dabiao. You silly kid, how dare you take action? Wang Changgui's eyes lit up. If he could take the opportunity to kill or maim, wouldn't it be even easier for him to rob the house? After all, Wang Hanlin still owes him 5,000 yuan. As long as Han Meili is captured and Zhang Dabiao is beaten, he can't take care of himself. He can easily take care of this house in minutes. Bald brother, this fool is not easy to deal with. If we don't solve him, I'm afraid you won't be able to take Han Meili and his wife away today. Zhou Dana followed and coaxed. Bald-headed brother is a thug in their town. He is in his 40s and exudes a fierce aura all over his body. Seeing this scene, he knows the seriousness of the problem and immediately nods to his subordinates. The 2 little street wanderers who were knocked down the steps by the fools also looked like they had been beaten with chicken blood. They raised their fists and greeted Zhang Dabiao. Aunt Li was stunned by her presence and instinctively wanted to block him, but Zhang Dabiao leaped over Aunt Li with a brisk step and pounced directly at the 2 small street runners rushing towards him. He moved his hands without dragging his feet, punching, and 2 street wanderers were repeatedly pushed back by him. And the villagers also found it unbelievable upon seeing this, but soon everyone realized the seriousness of the situation and retreated one after another. The bald man quenched his saliva fiercely and roared angrily, "Why are you still standing still? Go ahead. Kill him." The other few street wanderers immediately rushed forward, and the scene suddenly became chaotic. Big Bald had been keeping an eye on the situation, and he never expected this fool to be so capable of fighting. As he watched his younger brothers lose their momentum after being beaten, he felt a chill in his heart and pulled out a dagger pinned to his waist before pouncing on Zhang Dabiao. Zhang Dabiao only felt a cold light flash past, and instinctively raised his hand to block it. The palm of his hand cooled down, and then a piercing pain came from his heart. The bald man was completely stunned. He didn't expect the fool to dare to take the blade empty-handed. Sure enough. He was very foolish. But then he knew he was going to have bad luck and wanted to release the dagger and run back, when a fist the size of a sandbag landed on his face. Zhang Dabiao was known for his ruthlessness before, but now that he has seen blood again, he naturally has no intention of easily letting the bald men go. In no time, he thrust the dagger into the belly of the bald man with his backhand, and in an instant, a pig-like scream echoed through the entire village. Killed. The fool killed. The villagers screamed and scattered, fearing that slowing down one step would become the next target of fools. Although this knife didn't poke Wang Changgui in the stomach, he was still scared to the point where his face turned pale. Zhou Dana, who had been dominating the village, was even more frightened and broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he used medicine yesterday to knock Zhang Dabiao unconscious before kicking him into the well again. Otherwise, it would have been Zhou Dana who fell into the well. Thinking about it now, there was a wave of fear. Zhou Dana was afraid that Zhang Dabiao would find him, so he crawled along with the villagers and ran away. Biao, hurry up and put down your weapons. Don't do anything foolish, oldly family. What are you still waiting for? Hurry up and persuade Zhang Dabiao. Wang Changgui was also shocked. If someone really died, he, as the village chief, would also be blamed. Biao, are you still listening to Antli? Hurry up and put down the knife. Antli also shouted hard. A fool is really going crazy, who knows if he will completely lose his sanity. To his delight, Zhang Dabiao actually threw down his weapon and sat on his doorstep like a door god. A few street wanderers from the countryside had never seen this battle before. They were already scared out of their wits by him, and coupled with the fact that bald brother had been stabbed by someone, they dared not stay for a long time. A few people drove their bald heads towards the distance. Old Lees, I'll leave this to you. I'll catch up and take a look first. After speaking, Wang Changgui also ran away. Zhang Dabiao knew it was impossible to just forget about this matter. Big Bald and these lone sharks would definitely not give up easily, but he didn't want to implicate Antli. So he said, Antli, go home. Are you okay, this silly child? You've injured your hand. Hurry up and go to the clinic to get it bandaged, right? Antli was both scared and worried, so she walked over with her heart wide open and kicked the bloody dagger far away. Zhang Dabiao was deeply moved and shook his head, revealing a silly smile. It's okay, it doesn't hurt. Hurry up and let me take a look. Antli opened Zhang Dabiao's hand and glanced at him twice, then told him to wait here and not go anywhere, and hurriedly went home. After a while, Antli brought gauze and hydrogen peroxide from home to disinfect and bandage him. Auntie, you're really kind, Zhang Dabiao said sincerely. Silly kid, you said it's useless. After wrapping up, Antli stood up with her waist, you go in quickly, I won't go in. Although she also sympathized with Han Meili's orphan and widowed mother, the thought of Wang Hanlin deceiving the foolish boy Zhang Dabiao made her feel uncomfortable and she didn't want to see Han Meili. Come in. Zhang Dabiao took Aunt Li's hand and pulled her closer to the door. He'll have to figure out a way to make money later. It's really unsettling to leave Han Meili at home alone. Big brother, you. What's wrong with your hand? What happened when you shouted, kill, outside just now? Han Meili nervously looked at Zhang Dabiao's hand. Zhang Dabiao grinned and revealed a row of pure white teeth. At this moment, Aunt Li sighed and recounted what had just happened. Upon hearing these words, Han Meili felt even more distressed in her heart. I said it's beautiful, it's really not possible. Why don't you go out and hide with the child first? Aunt Li persuaded at this moment. Han Meili was quite moved, but Zhang Dabiao shook his head and said, child, young, there's no place to hide. Oh, that's true, but if you don't hide, those people will definitely come back again. Next time, I'm afraid there will be more. Aunt Li sighed, to be honest, she also knew it was a bad idea. A fool, a baby, and a helpless woman, where should we hide? Can you avoid it? When two people were at a loss, they heard Zhang Dabiao shake his head and say, "Don't hide." Although Zhang Dabiao can still pretend to be a fool and stubbornly argue with them next time they come, it is simply unrealistic in the long run. How long can he defend himself alone? So make money now and pay back the money first is the hard truth. But how can this money be so easy to earn? After careful consideration, Zhang Dabiao suddenly had an idea and said, "I'll go make money." After speaking, before the two women could recover, Zhang Dabiao turned around and ran away. Aunt Li was startled and patted Han Meili's hand. "Beautiful, you're watching the child at home. I'll go after him. This silly child is really not a worry." Han Meili was also very anxious, but at this moment, the little ancestor in the room cried again, and she could only reluctantly go back to the room to comfort the child. Zhang Dabiao ran ahead and Li Auntie chased behind, but she couldn't catch up. After a while, she got lost. The sun rises 3 times, and the scorching sun scorches the earth. Even the cicadas on the trees understand how to preserve their energy and stop hissing. But under the sun, Zhang Dabiao carried a bamboo pole and slowly moved forward, sweeping the river water. There was a big fish stuck in the head of the bamboo pole, but the fish had already died. Zhang Dabiao's move was to catch the stone turtles in the river. A few years ago, someone caught a stone turtle weighing 100 pounds and sold it for 30,000 yuan. Zhang Dabiao also thought of this, so he wanted to try his luck. Unfortunately, until evening, he walked along the river for more than 10 miles, not to mention the big stone turtle, he didn't even see a single turtle hair. Returning to the village, he saw Uncle Li riding his motorcycle back from a distance. Uncle Li saw him and stopped the car, giving him a kick. "Stinky kid, where have you been all day? You're lucky. I've been running all day, and I've been looking for you all day." "Uncle Li, I was wrong." Zhang Dabiao lowered his head with a guilty conscience and let Uncle Li scold him. After he calmed down, he said, "Hurry up and get in the car. Aunt Li should still be keeping her food." Zhang Dabiao didn't show any courtesy to him and directly got on the motorcycle. After having dinner at Aunt Li's house, it was around 8 o'clock. Zhang Dabiao was still preparing to catch the stone turtle, but when he thought about how anxious Uncle Li and Aunt Li were, Han Meili must also be. So he went home and prepared to explain a few words to her to save himself from worry. Of course, what worries him even more is that if he leaves silently, they will definitely come out again to find him. At the thought of this, Zhang Dabiao felt a headache. Being a fool is good, and hitting people is not illegal, but unfortunately it is not free, and even when going out alone, the family is not at ease. Upon returning home, Zhang Dabiao was about to enter the room to inform Han Meili, but as soon as he put his hand on the door, he heard the sound of water dripping from inside. At the moment he looked through the glass, Zhang Dabiao's nose was boiling with blood. "I saw a hazy mist inside, and there was a fairy with her back to her, blowing bubbles on her body." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Wen Neng catches turtles in the river, Wen Neng recites mantras to save fish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Wen Neng catches turtles in the river, Wen Neng recites mantras to save fish. She is very white, her skin is like milk in a lunch bowl, and her lines are beautiful, especially those 2 legs, straight like ivory chopsticks on TV. She stood in the basin, bent down, as if trying to grab something from the ground, and the perfect attacking route was all presented in front of Zhang Dabiao. Zhang Dabiao's 2 nostrils began to boil blood, and he quickly covered his nose, his heart racing uncontrollably. He really wanted to turn around and leave, but he didn't want to miss such a beautiful scenery. His legs were as if they had taken root. Han Meili turned around and wanted to get a bath towel, but Zhang Dabiao's eyes were almost wide open. It was just a second of pleasure, and the luck of a fool was not always good. Han Meili, who was taking a shower inside, saw someone outside the window covering her face and screamed in terror, "Who's there?" Zhang Dabiao's heart skipped a beat and he said, "Brother. Sister. Law, it's me. I didn't see it." After saying this, Zhang Dabiao regretted it. He even said he didn't see it. "Isn't this place without 300 taels of silver? You'll come in later." Upon hearing that it was Uncle Silly, Han Meili couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. She wasn't stingy enough to compete with a fool. After a while, Han Meili came out in her nightgown and opened the door. "Come in." "I won't go in, let me tell you, I'll go to the river to catch the stone turtle. Sell it for money." "But how dangerous is it for you to go to the river so late?" Han Meili suddenly became nervous and looked at Zhang Dabiao helplessly, thinking to herself that this fool is really not a worry. "What have you been doing all day?" "Catching stone turtles." Zhang Dabiao nodded. Han Meili pursed her lips and said, "Where's your stone turtle?" "I didn't catch it." Zhang Dabiao awkwardly scratched his head again. "I can't catch it during the day, and I can't catch it even more at night. Hurry up and go to bed, don't think you'll leave as soon as you leave," she said as she dragged Zhang Dabiao into the room. Originally, Zhang Dabiao's back was facing her, and this tug happened to show Han Meili his unremarkable appearance. "Ah, big brother, what's wrong with your nose? Who hit it?" Han Meili's heart tightened and she quickly asked. In the morning, Zhang Dabiao just injured the person who was lending high-interest loans. "Who are those people? Can you easily give up and give up?" So she naturally got involved with Zhang Dabiao's nosebleeds. Zhang Dabiao felt embarrassed and wished he could find a crack in the ground, but his face still had that silly smile on it. He explained, "It's hot." Upon hearing that it wasn't someone else who hit it, Han Meili couldn't help but stroke her chest and said, "It's not someone else who hit it, but you're really good. You go out and run around on such a hot day." When she thought about Zhang Dabiao's kindness to her again, Han Meili couldn't bear to continue. Returning to the house, Zhang Dabiao turned off the lights. Han Meili didn't let him go down the river, but if he didn't go down, he wouldn't be able to catch the stone turtle, and if he couldn't catch the stone turtle, he wouldn't be able to sell it for money. So he prepared to wait for Han Meili to fall asleep and sneak out, and it was not until early morning that Zhang Dabiao carefully slipped out of the house. At night, the riverbank was still stuffy and hot. Zhang Dabiao wiped the hen that had come from the village head's house on his neck, tied it to a rope, and started slowly walking around the riverbank with a bamboo pole. The stone turtle, also known as the spotted turtle, is a very rare type of turtle, and each one can be sold for a large price. Zhang Dabiao tried using fish for a day without any effect, and then he prepared to use chicken. He wanted to use the bloody smell of chicken blood to lure out the turtles. Catching turtles is not an easy task. Zhang Dabiao kept walking and fiddling with bamboo poles, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 4 o'clock in the morning, by which time the sky was gradually brightening. Zhang Dabiao is very anxious. After all, he escaped secretly and must go back before Han Meili gets up, otherwise it will be difficult to run out again next time. Perhaps his thoughts were sensed by the heavens, and at that moment, a black figure suddenly popped out of the water, swallowing the hen in one gulp. Zhang Dabiao was overjoyed and grabbed the bamboo pole hard, only then did he realize the huge shadow on the river surface. "I'm going, is this turtle almost becoming sperm?" Zhang Dabiao's eyes turned green, and he didn't care about anything else at the moment, so he plunged into the river. It was a long time before he finally got excited and struggled to drag the stone turtle ashore, giving him the opportunity to look at it. What he never expected was that if he didn't catch it, he wouldn't catch it, and as soon as he caught it, he would catch the bulk goods. The old turtle that Zhang Dabiao flipped over in front of him had a diameter of half a meter and was blood red all over. It was the first time Zhang Dabiao had seen such a large stone turtle. The lid of the stone turtle is facing downwards, and no matter how it kicks or stretches its neck, it is of no use. Zhang Dabiao packed it in a big burlap bag, and the over 200-pound stone turtle carried it on its shoulder and ran towards the village, but because it was still early, no one in the village saw it. Of course, he didn't dare to take it home directly, fearing that Han Meili would know she was sneaking out at night. So he hid the stone turtle in the vegetable garden and waited until after eating before sneaking out again. Antli, borrow a tricycle to ride. Zhang Dabiao looked at Antli with a silly expression on his face. Antli glanced at him and said, "You stinky kid, why are you riding a tricycle?" "Apply herbicides," Zhang Dabiao said casually. "Oh, okay, you can ride away. If you don't cross the road, slow down and let the car pass first." Antli still felt a bit uneasy and chased after her until she reached the door. Zhang Dabiao returned home and loaded the pesticide machine, and a large bucket of water into the car. While moving it, he pondered and thought to himself, thinking that this fool was too difficult, right? He has already figured it out, as long as he gathers enough money, he will come back to confront Han Meili. Feeling like he was really going to spray pesticides in the field, Zhang Dabiao suppressed the urge to laugh at himself, then shouted at Han Meili, who was looking at the children inside, and hurriedly left the door. When he arrived at the vegetable field, he unloaded and hid these things, got the old turtle onto the car, and carried a large bucket of water. An old stone turtle arrived at the river. There is a 1-meter square small pond by the river, which was dug by Zhang Dabiao yesterday. The fish inside were caught by him using a fish basket when he was luring stone turtles. There are about 10 fish baskets, and occasionally a net is drawn. Unexpectedly, a small pond is filled with water, and since we have to go to the city, Zhang Dabiao plans to bring these fish with us. Selling more or less, as long as we can make money, is better than anything else. It's just a pity that this small pond has been dug narrow, and there are many fish inside. The weather is also hot, and many have already died. The rest are also half dead. I don't know what he remembered, but his eyes suddenly lit up. Then he sat cross-legged on the ground, staring at the small pool without looking at it, muttering something in his mouth. At this moment, the small pool gradually boiled up, and the half-dead fish became cheerful again, just like a tonic. Zhang Dabiao was overjoyed. Unexpectedly, the Dragon King's reincarnation technique could not help but be effective on plants and animals, but it was unclear whether it was effective on humans. It seemed like he had the opportunity to try it out. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Good Brothers Under the Stone in the Well. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Good Brothers Under the Stone in the Well put the fish into the bucket, and Zhang Dabiao rode 3 wheels to the city. Hubei City, Yonghong Agricultural and Sideline Products Wholesale Market. Zhang Dabiao paid 30 yuan to rent a booth and then moved the stone turtle out of the car. The people who came and went were all attracted at once. "Brother, are you a zebra turtle? Call it a stone turtle." Zhang Dabiao grinned at the middle-aged man who was inquiring. The latter immediately understood and asked, "How much do you plan to sell it for?" 80,000. Zhang Dabiao said. The stone turtle is already rare, and this one has a diameter of half a meter and a red shell. It must have been around for 100 years. The 1,000-year king 80,000-year turtle is a legendary existence. Although there are 100-year-old stone turtles, they are actually rare. Besides, when he first arrived, he didn't rush to sell them and just quoted a price casually. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before saying, "Brother, this price is too high. I need to consult our manager." "Feel free." Zhang Dabiao smiled. As soon as I heard about being so wealthy, those who watched the excitement dispersed one after another. After all, no one was willing to spend $10 to buy this thing. Eating it is not willing, keeping it is also afraid of not being able to live. Besides, raising such a thing at home is not right. Anyway, Zhang Dabiao is not in a hurry to sell. If someone asks for a price of 80,000 yuan at once, they won't sell it if it's missing. Those who buy sincerely will naturally calm down and have a good conversation with him. Those who buy insincerely don't need to waste their words. Zhang Dabiao saw off the last person watching the excitement, then moved the bucket down and prepared to sell the fish first. As soon as he turned around, two people stood before meeting. One of them was holding a folding fan, wearing a double-breasted coat, wearing a pair of toed mirrors, and a pair of round-mouth cloth shoes on his feet, dressed up playfully. As soon as the person saw Zhang Dabiao, they immediately pulled the toed mirror under their nostrils and looked at him in disbelief. It took them a long time to clap their hands and merge the folding fan, and they chuckled playfully, "Hey, isn't that our Biao brother? What's the matter? Now that he's getting rich, he's all changed to being a turtle." When Zhang Dabiao saw the newcomer, his heart instinctively felt a burst of joy, but as he spoke these words, the joy gradually became dull, and he was even too lazy to speak to him. "The person in front of me is called Li Songshan, and my family owns a decent restaurant. I used to offend people because of this mouth, but with Zhang Dabiao covering it up, they didn't make it difficult for him." From then on, he always regarded himself as Zhang Dabiao's younger brother, and later Zhang Dabiao always brought his brothers to support him, gradually recognizing him as his brother. As the saying goes, adversity reveals true feelings. Zhang Dabiao was hit on the head with a hammer, and his foolishness lasted for 5 years. As a brother who had not seen him for 5 years, he never expected to be ridiculed by strange things when he met. "I'm afraid it will make anyone feel uncomfortable. But that's also good, it's clear whether a person is a dog at a glance. Why don't we help Brother Biao buy his stone turtles?" The person behind Li Songshan rolled his eyes, then squatted down and smiled at Zhang Dabiao. "Brother Biao, do you remember me? I'm Song Shui, Li Er." "Song Shui, you're crazy. Get up quickly. Do you know who he offended to become like this? Do you know who is the most powerful in Xingshan County now?" "Of course I know." Li Songshui stood up and whispered in Li Songshan's ear, "Anyway, he's a fool now. Why don't we deceive him, this stone turtle? If Daxing finds out about this, he will only be happy and won't blame us." Upon hearing this, Li Songshan's eyes lit up and he glanced at Zhang Dabiao, who was full of emotions. His mind gradually became active. He crouched down and smiled, "Brother Biao. I'm your brother Li Songshan. Do you remember me? You stole this stone turtle from my house, and I need to take it back now." After speaking, the two brothers gave a look and were about to start directly grabbing the turtle. Others don't know Zhang Dabiao's background, but these two brothers understand that fools don't snatch things for nothing, even if they encounter obstacles, there is a way to get rid of them. Zhang Dabiao raised his head as if he were looking at a fool and watched as these two brothers went to catch the old turtle. Finally, he couldn't help but laugh and said, "Put it down." "Ah!" Both brothers were stunned, but soon Li Songshan laughed. "Brother Biao, you stole this stone turtle from your brother's house. I need to take it back now." Originally, such a big stone turtle was very attractive, and with this incident happening again, in the blink of an eye, people gathered here again, and several market managers were also startled and ran over. "I asked you to put it down." Zhang Dabiao's face was still smiling, but his smile had already stiffened. He was indeed laughing, and it was from the bottom of his heart, but the object of the joke was himself. He laughed at his clumsiness and didn't see clearly what these two brothers were. "Brother Biao, this thing really belongs to us. You stole our thing because your head was injured and it's not easy to use, so we're not going to argue with you." As soon as these words were spoken, the onlookers immediately understood what was going on and began to point out, "So this young man has a problem with his mind. It looks tall and imposing, but unfortunately, my brain is not working properly." Li Songshan and Li Songshui quickly agreed, "It's also our brother's fault. My older brother always throws things away after his head is injured. I didn't take good care of him this time, and he came here to sell things." The two brothers sighed and spoke one by one, shaping their image to be incredibly tall. "Anyway, now they say whatever they want. You two are really good. Hurry up and bring your good brother back. Don't be here, let someone deceive you again. Yeah, yes, we'll have to keep an eye on it next time. Because Zhang Dabiao didn't speak, everyone believed it to be true. The two brothers looked at each other and laughed knowingly. They were ready to put the stone turtle on 3 rounds, earning a free stone turtle and even getting an electric 3-round ride. This business really made a lot of money. However, at this moment, Zhang Dabiao grabbed Li Songshan's wrist. Hey, it hurts. Li Songshan took a cold breath. Li Songshui was also startled and cursed loudly, "Fool, quickly let go of my big brother." Zhang Dabiao didn't pay attention to him, but instead pulled Li Songshan up to him and said in a deep voice, "Li Songshan, it's a pity that you're not an actor." That clear gaze, with a hint of playfulness in its icy tone, is not what a fool should have. Li Songshan trembled and instinctively withdrew his wrist. Zhang Dabiao was too lazy to pay attention to such a person, so he took the opportunity to let go and the latter sat on the ground with a big butt. "Big brother. Let's go. Hurry up." Li Songshan had followed Zhang Dabiao before and was well aware of how fierce Zhang Dabiao was. If he didn't leave now, when would he wait? Forget it, this kind of person can't be provoked, just slip away quickly is the way. The onlookers were all stunned and had no idea what had just happened. Zhang Dabiao was too lazy to explain. As soon as he saw that there was no more excitement to see, his surroundings became deserted again. Even the 2 vegetable sellers next to him quickly closed their stalls and went elsewhere, fearing that they would be beaten by the fool. Zhang Dabiao sat in front of the stall without shouting, truly a Buddhist seller, because at this moment he was reminiscing about the little things before. Think of those brothers who hang out together all day long, think of those good friends who don't separate their families, think of those nights spent singing and indulging in extravagance. Gradually, his eyes turned red. After mixing for so many years, he has gained nothing but nothing else. These 5 foolish years have made him realize the care that Uncle and Aunt Li have given him, and his sister La Han Mei Li has given him a truly warm home. And those villagers who have helped him in the village. Zhang Dabiao felt that these were all debts, and he had to do something to repay them. "Hello, is this stone turtle selling for 80,000 yuan?" Just then, a silver bell-like pleasant voice pulled back Zhang Dabiao's thoughts. Upon regaining his senses, the first thing Zhang Dabiao saw was a very white and long leg. He had read countless women in the past few years and had never seen such a beautiful leg shape before. He couldn't help but take a second glance. The girl frowned slightly. He didn't expect that this person was actually a disciple and was about to get angry. At this moment, a vegetable seller next to her quickly reminded her, "Girl, that person has a bad brain and is also very aggressive. Please be careful." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Girl Who Can Shine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The girl who can shine. Upon hearing the reminder from the vegetable seller, the girl's beautiful eyes gradually became hazy. 3 years ago, her older brother had a car accident that damaged his brain. Later, with the careful care of his family, he gradually became able to live like a normal person. Even tigers sometimes take a nap, let alone humans. A year ago, his older brother went out and never came back. The family searched for him for almost a year, but still had no news. So when she saw Zhang Dabiao, she couldn't help but think of his lost brother. She lowered her skirt and slowly squatted in front of Zhang Dabiao. Zhang Dabiao still had a silly smile on his face, looking at the girl in front of him who was dressed fashionably and had skin so white that it seemed to glow. Looking at her like this, she's only in her early 20s, but why does she look at herself with such eyes? Can it be true that she thinks she's a fool? 80,000. Zhang Dabiao was a bit angry and spoke directly. The girl let out a soft then nodded and smiled slightly at Zhang Dabiao. "Big brother, my name is Shenzi. Where did you catch this thing? It's so big." "Oh, this was caught in the jinha of our village." Zhang Dabiao became excited when he heard that the other party really wanted to buy it. Jinhe. Where is Jinhe? Shen Zishuan glanced at the stone turtle and casually asked. Their restaurant is a high-end restaurant open to high-end people, but there are dozens of such restaurants in the entire city of Bubei, and homogenization is too severe. Moreover, their restaurant has just opened, and in order to build its reputation, it is necessary to find another shortcut. So when the chef who was out shopping met a big stone turtle, she, as the manager, rushed over without stopping. But now she not only needs to buy stone turtles, but also needs to take this big brother who is not very smart home. In Jinshan town and Jinmen village, the river at the entrance of our village is called Jinhe. Zhang Dabiao was happy at this moment and thought to himself that if the stone turtle was sold, he would have money to help Han Meili pay off her debts. He didn't even realize why this girl inquired so clearly. Oh, you definitely didn't catch such a big stone turtle alone, did you? Shen Zishuan's gaze fell back on Zhang Dabiao's silly face and asked obediently. The journey was dusty, and with a lot of fish loaded by the river, Zhang Dabiao's new clothes were already dirty this morning. Coupled with that silly smile, he was no different from a fool. Seeing Zhang Dabiao not speaking, Shen Zishuan smiled and said, Big brother, I'm not a scammer. I'm the manager of Yunju building. Alright, you see, this stone turtle is so big that I can't take a girl back. Can you help me deliver it to the restaurant? I'll give you the money when I get to the restaurant. Zhang Dabiao nodded and said, okay. He is very short of money now. As long as he can sell it, let alone deliver it, he can give a little less. After all, a few years ago someone caught a 100-pound one and only sold it for 30,000 yuan. His estimated 200-pound one is only around 60,000 or 70,000 yuan, and 80,000 yuan is already very high. Come, I'll help you. Shen Zishuan stood up and prepared to help Zhang Dabiao lift the stone turtle onto the tricycle. Zhang Dabiao grinned and said, I'm fine myself. After speaking, he met Shen Zishuan's surprised gaze and effortlessly lifted the 200-pound stone turtle onto 3 rounds, followed by the bucket of fish. However, this time he was stunned for a moment, but then it was still effortless. Zhang Dabiao noticed that the bucket suddenly became heavy. He glanced inside and was surprised to find that the fish inside had grown quite a bit larger. However, before he could fully recover, he felt his arm scalded. When he looked up, he saw Shen Zishuan smiling at him. Shen Zishuan was extremely shocked in her heart. She walked up to the premise of the bucket, and the shock was beyond measure. She glanced at Zhang Dabiao's bulging biceps again and couldn't help but touch them. The sturdy touch and masculine aura continued to stimulate her little heart and liver. The love for beauty is universal, and in the eyes of men, beauty should be seen in women as gentle and virtuous, with delicate bodies. But in the eyes of women, a strong man can make them feel more secure, and this big Biao also has a pair of thick eyebrows and big eyes. Zhang Dabiao never expected that one day he would be robbed by a beautiful woman, but he was still eager to go home early, so he didn't want to make any mistakes, as if nothing had happened. Shen Zishuan was originally worried about whether her actions were Meng Lang, but seeing that Zhang Dabiao had no response, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and sympathize with Zhang Dabiao. It wasn't until Yunju building that Zhang Dabiao realized how big this restaurant was. The entrance was decorated like a palace, and the interior was even more magnificent. Brother Biao, come in. Shen Zishuan smiled and welcomed Zhang Dabiao into the office, then said, Don't worry, I'll have someone go to collect the cash. Oh, by the way, do you have a phone number? Leave a phone number. You can contact me when you catch this kind of stone turtle in the future. Along the way, he also gained a rough understanding of Shen Zishuan and knew that this girl was indeed the manager of Yunju building, and she was also a good person. The only thing that made Zhang Dabiao dissatisfied was that she regarded herself as a fool. Manager Shen, actually I'm not a fool, Zhang Dabiao scratched his head and said innocently. Ah. Shen Zixuan was taken aback for a moment, then pursed her lips and smiled. I know. How could Brother Biao be a fool? Despite that, she was even more convinced that Zhang Dabiao had a problem with his mind. Otherwise, how would he know he thought he was a fool? It must be someone who often says he's stupid, but he doesn't think so and just wants to rush to defend himself. Yes, it must be like this. Shen Zixuan was also a little worried in her heart, afraid that this fool would become wary. She said, "What is your phone number? Let's leave each other's contact information." Zhang Dabiao shook his head and said, "I don't have a phone, you can call 13. This is my Uncle Li's phone number, you can find me by calling this number." Shen Zixuan quickly wrote down the phone number in her notebook, and then breathed a long sigh of relief, thinking to herself that this work had not been in vain. Finally, she had to get his home phone number. He even felt fortunate for Zhang Dabiao. Fortunately, he had met himself. If he had met a bad person, not to mention money, he was afraid that his stone turtle would have been scammed away long ago. Thinking of this, she stood up with a smile and said, "Brother Biao, please sit in the office for a while, and I will go to urge the finance department." Zhang Dabiao felt a bit uneasy in his heart, knowing the face but not the heart. However, he was not afraid that Shen Zixuan would dare to forcibly occupy his stone turtle. If that were the case, there might be a lot of trouble, and it would be difficult to deal with if it alarmed the family. Shen Zixuan walked out and locked the door outside, then quickly dialed the phone number that Zhang Dabiao had mentioned. The person answering the phone is a man, who should be a very authentic old farmer. "Hello, who are you looking for? May I ask if you are Uncle Li, a relative of Zhang Dabiao?" Shen Zixuan asked nervously. To be honest, she didn't really believe in a fool's memory and was afraid of making a mistake on the phone, so she didn't dare to mention stone turtles or money. You, what do you do?" Uncle Li was instantly alert. "Looking for Zhang Dabiao." "What are you looking for Zhang Dabiao for? Isn't that kid going to sprinkle pesticides in the field?" "Hello uncle, don't worry, I'm not a bad person." "Not a bad person, how fresh is it?" Uncle Li is a native of the village. Although he has never seen much in his life, he always hears people being scammed by phone and taking away a lot of money, so he hung up the phone without waiting for her to finish speaking. Shen Zixuan blinked her bright eyes, feeling a bit lost for a moment. She quickly turned back and said, "Uncle, Zhang Dabiao is with us." Pop. The phone has been disconnected again. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The issue of money's return and retention. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.